today is the day I'm going to be sharing with you some amazing little tricks and tweaks and tips to help you and your child gently get a better night's sleep. This week, I'm going to talk all about routines, daily routines, and actually how they can help your child get the best possible sleep. Let's get started. So did you know that if your child is overtired or undertired, they're going to struggle to fall asleep? Well, obviously, if they're not quite tired enough, they're going to struggle to fall asleep. But a child who is overtired is going to not have too much of a problem getting sleep. It may be trickier if they're overtired, but they're actually going to struggle to remain asleep when they're overtired. And so this is when it impacts their nap time. That means that they may be not getting the best possible naps, which is then in turn going to impact your nighttime sleep, because we're dealing with an overtired, overstimulated child come the end of the day, and that makes sleep so much harder to do. So I'm going to share with you some little tips and tricks to help you with finding the perfect daytime routine for your child, so that they're then going to be able to get the best possible naps, and then they're going to be able to get the best possible nighttime sleep. So let's just start with a newborn. And a newborn routine, well, there isn't one. Newborns don't do great on routine because everything is a nap. Newborns are sleeping exactly as newborns should. And I really wouldn't even consider getting onto a daytime routine until around 12 weeks of age. And I would go from 12 weeks from due date, not from birthday. And the reason I would do this is that there's actually a very big shift that happens with sleep around 12 weeks from due date, not from birthday, where your child will go from infant sleep cycles to adult sleep cycles. And honestly, this can make getting onto that daily routine so much easier to do. So wait until your child is around 12 weeks of age, and then the routine that I would move your child onto is just the hour-and-a-half awake routine. And it's pretty simple that your child is awake for a maximum of an hour and a half before they go down for their nap. And then they'll nap, and then they'll go down for a maximum of they'll be awake for a maximum hour and a half, nap, hour and a half, nap. And it just goes on and on and on through your day until you hit your nighttime. Depends on your child as to when their nighttime is going to be. Late bedtimes are really, really normal for children around this 12-week mark. Daytime sleep is now managed by one area of the brain. Nighttime sleep is managed by another. And until the nighttime kind of kicks in, everything is a nap, which means that everything can be kind of short. So that's why we want to keep going and not have that set bedtime. Just keep going until you start getting those longer stretches. That is then when nighttime sleep has begun. So hour and a half awake, nap, hour and a half awake, nap. Depending on the duration of the nap will depend on how long the awake period is. The shorter the nap, the shorter the awake period. And that makes perfect sense. So that's why you want to maximum out at an hour and a half. Short naps are normal for this age, so don't worry too much about that. As we get to about 4.5, 5, sometimes 4 months, we want to stretch to 2 hours of awake, and we want to do the same, like maximum 2 hours of awake, nap, 2 hours, nap, 2 hours, and again until bedtime. Bedtime will most certainly be a little bit earlier than it was with a 12-week-old. So you're just keeping your duration, that duration of the awake time, maximum 2 hours. The longer the nap, the longer the awake time. So if your child only naps for 30 minutes, 2 hours may be a little bit too long for them, and that's okay. You can tweak and change your duration of awake as you need to during the day. As we then get past 6 months of age, we can begin to shift your child to the 2-3-4 routine. The 2-3-4 routine is my secret weapon when it comes to sleep. Not so secret weapon, actually. Everybody, I tell everybody about this because it's so good. 2-3-4 routine means awake for 2 hours in the morning, then down for a nap. awake for 3 hours, then down for the second nap, and awake for 4, and then down for the night. So we have 2, 3, 4, and those are your awake periods. With 3 hours total daytime sleep, that gives us a 12-hour day. It's a really, really good routine. Initially, if you're getting your child and they're just 6 months and you're getting them onto this routine, that 4-hour stretch is going to be a little bit too long. So you can keep a cat nap in there as need be. Cat nap is really helpful if you've only had shorter awake periods, shorter naps. It just kind of helps keep your bedtime on track. So it's a good way kind of extending your day out, but that 4-hour stretch initially is a little bit too long. So have that cat nap in there. A cat nap needs to be just long enough to keep your child going until bedtime. So it may be that the longer the nap, the longer the awake time before bed. So you may need to wake your child from that cat nap just to keep your bedtime on track. After a cat nap, you may need to have about 2 hours of awake time. So just be aware of that as to what time that cat nap is happening and how long that is going on for. So we have the 2, 3, 4. Your child will stay on 2, 3, 4 until they drop down to 1 nap, and that's sometime normally between 12 and 18 months of age, the average being 15 months of age. Some signs your child is ready to drop down to 1 nap are struggling to fall asleep for either nap, but more specifically the second nap of the day, struggling to fall asleep at the beginning of the night, and something that we really often see, and you may not actually put it down to too much daytime sleep, is beginning to wake earlier in the morning. That can actually be due to too much daytime sleep. And so those are signs that your child can be ready to drop down to 1 nap. And that 1 nap then is going to be around lunchtime. With your child getting up in the morning, that 1 nap will be around in the middle of the day, and then they have a wake period before going down for the night. There is no magic duration for that 1 nap. When we're on the 2, 3, 4, our average sleep duration is the 3 hours. But remember, as you're shifting then to 1 nap, you're shifting to 1 nap because your child needs less sleep during the day. So reduction down there is pretty normal. And then as your child kind of continues to grow and go through developmental stages, that duration of that nap will really kind of shift. Children normally drop down to no naps, and that's a very sad day, sometime between 3 and 5 years old. Some signs your child is ready to completely drop that nap are struggling to fall asleep for the nap, struggling to fall asleep at the beginning of the night, and then again beginning to wake up earlier in the morning. Not something you'd necessarily put down to too much daytime sleep, is waking earlier in the morning, but that is certainly a sign. So signs you want to look for: struggling to fall asleep for your nap time and potentially nighttime, and beginning to wake up in the morning. Because when we're dealing with remember, this is kind of our minimum of 3-year-olds and around that age, very, very good procrastinators and can kind of delay almost anything, especially when it comes to going to sleep. So don't necessarily think, especially if your child is under 3. I hear this a lot from people wondering if their child is ready to drop their nap and they're under 3. They're not necessarily ready to drop their nap. They're just procrastinating, because 2-year-olds are very, very, very good at this. If you've ever met a 2-year-old, you'll know that they're really good at procrastinating and delaying, and that's when they want to ask all the questions, especially as we get into those 3 and 4-year-olds. Lots of questions come bedtime, because that's kind of, when you think about it, that's when we're slowing down, and when they're not constantly sort of seeking things to keep them entertained. So that's when they become those perfect little philosophers, because now they're suddenly thinking of things because they've actually physically slowed down. And that's when they start thinking about things. So that's when you get all those questions. So don't necessarily think that just because your child is taking a long time to fall asleep that they're actually ready to drop their nap. It can just be that they're just expert procrastinators. Oh, they are. They definitely are. So we start at around 12 weeks of age with our 1.5 hour awake routine. We then move on to our 2 hours awake routine at about 4.5, 5 months. 6 months, we start thinking about the 2, 3, 4 with a cat nap at 6 months. About 7.5, 8 months, the cat nap will be dropped, but we'll stick on 2, 3, 4. 2 hours awake, 3 hours awake, 4 hours awake, 3 hour nap, 12-hour day. So it's a great routine to stick on until your child drops down to one nap, somewhere between 12 and 18 months of age. They will be having that one nap normally around lunchtime, and then going down for the night. When it comes to your daytime routine, the only way we can have a consistent routine, meaning that our naps are going to be happening consistently around the same time, and more importantly, our bedtime is going to be happening at a consistent time. The only way that we can ensure this is happening is if we have a consistent awake time in the morning. And that's where people get a little bit, does that mean I have to wake my child up? It doesn't necessarily mean you have to wake your child up, but if you want everything to be consistent, we do need to have that consistent awake time. We want your child obviously to naturally wake at that consistent time. So I like to have an awake window in the morning, rather than maybe 7 a.m. being my perfect time. And when my kids were little, it was 5 minutes past 7 was our perfect time to get up. Any earlier, and that was still nighttime, but it meant that I would have to get them up, if we were going too much past that. But I like to have a window of about 30 minutes. So for me, that would be kind of 6:45 until 7:15. That's our window. Anything before 6:45, I'm treating it as nighttime. And at 7:15, I'm then going to be waking the kids up, just so that we can keep our nap time and our nighttime on track. It means that you've got the same kind of consistency with your naps throughout the day, and then more importantly, nighttime. As humans, we are creatures of habit, and if we're used to falling asleep at the same time each day, each night, then our body and our brain gets ready for that happening at the same time. So in itself, that can help your child to be falling asleep for nap time and for nighttime. Just think about, remember before you had kids, and during the week when you were working, you'd go to bed at 10. And then at the weekend, you could stay up late, and you would, not necessarily have to be in bed by 10, because remember those days that you could actually sleep in. You could actually sleep in, so you could stay up late because you were going to be able to sleep in. But at 10 o'clock, chances are you'd still kind of get really, really sleepy, and then you'd kind of come through it. But at 10 o'clock, you'd get really sleepy because that's when your brain and that's when your body is expecting to go to sleep. So it's really doing everything that it needed to do to help it get to sleep. So if you were in bed, you would have had an easy time falling asleep. But you just kind of push through it because you're like, no, I can stay up until like, woohoo, 11:15 tonight. So you can just kind of just keep going, and you'll kind of get the second wind and you'll be fine. But take note of kind of that little lull that you came into. If you can get your child doing that same lull, that means then that they're going to have that easier time falling asleep for both their naps and for their nighttime. So I am a fan of having an awake window. I think 30 minutes is perfect. So that means you've got 30-minute wiggle room with your start of the day. Naps then also we're going to have a little bit of wiggle room there, and that means that your nighttime as well is going to have a little bit of wiggle room. So we don't have super consistent, meaning that we're not necessarily falling asleep at the exact same time, but we've got that 30-minute window there. So routine, something that I always encourage families to work on before embarking on any sleep training or any other tweaks, because this is the foundation for good sleep. So when I'm working privately with families, or you're in Slumber Academy, the daily routine is one of the first things that we're going to be looking at. Also, we're going to look at our nap time routine and our nighttime routine, and I'm going to be talking all about those next week. But you want to get that foundation really, really solid, because that is then you're probably going to see some improvement with sleep, but it makes then the sleep training, if you need to do some, so much easier to do. Thank you for joining me with Sleep Tip Tuesday. I will be back next week. As I mentioned, I'm going to be talking all about the perfect nap time routine and nighttime routine for different ages and stages. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.